Alright everyone, I'm approaching edition number 150 as far as my occult literary works go, and since I'm thus 3/4 of the way to like the second stage of my goal, the first goal is to hit 100 editions. Second stage naturally following 200 editions. After that I can be a little bit more at leisure to slow it down and maybe just refine some older material too. I want to do some more study, not just a bunch more editing, and I want to write some of my own works too over time. But here's the thing. I figured it was time for a massive update as far as my literature. You see, the first few dozen editions that I released, I used a different format than I now use as far as the cover font, the trim, even the symbol that I use, the Ouroboros that's on the back of each book, was different and less refined. Honestly, I had rendered it more primitively. There are certain problems with the format of the interior as well. That is, I wasn't using a professional illustrator at the time. My own illustrations are not perfect in all cases. Some of them are okay. Like the ones I did for Fruits of Eden, I thought I was pretty happy with them. I'm pretty good at sketching plants. But then some of them, yeah, not so much. I'm not so good at. So I need to have all the images for those earlier works redone. I want to add a center image as well to the front of each cover. I'm thinking about sketching those and doing them in bulk, through my illustrator, asking her if she wants to work on that project. By the way, she's illustrated the Ars Gotia, Rita Metzner, very good work. Has illustrated the Paulina. Those were done as of last night, and so I'm plopped half of them in. Well, also what I need to do is the font. That is, I used to just keep it at 12-point font. The problem being when you're using a smaller book trim size, you should have a smaller font. It's kind of excessive to keep it at that higher. I now use an 11, which is more standard for the size of book that I use. So I need to go back and do that. I think that was for the first roughly 20 editions or 30. And some of those are important works as well. And this is the other part of it. Some of those early works, the reason I did them first was specifically because they're significant. The Grand Grimoire, the Black Pullet, which doesn't get half as much attention as I think it would if I redid its format and made it look more attractive. So I'm interested in going back and refining those, all the covers, cover font, and so forth. That will take some weeks. But the first thing that I have to do before I can do any of that is organize all my files. You see, I tend to be messy when it comes to my USB drive, my flash drive for my literary works. Unfortunately, that means that I have to go through and I have to individually check literally everything. Then, after I do that, I have to convert all of the PDFs. I'm thinking about going through and doing a quick spell check too, because people have reported the occasional error in some of my works. So I'm going to go do a cursory spell check after the organization. That'll take a few days on its own, even if I'm speed reading through them, because, it's a fucking lot of work. Once that's done, I need to take all the PDFs and convert them one by one to EPUB files. I'm not going to buy some conversion software. I can do it online. It doesn't take that long. That'll take an afternoon, though. So, we're up to, 3 weeks now? The rest of May. And then I can actually begin re-releasing the improved files. You see, I have to redo all of the ebooks. Originally, the problem, and I explained this at the time, the first problem that I had was that when I converted them, I used their auto-convert process. Most of the files, if they had any images in them, thus, they rendered only the front page and a couple of blank pages and maybe a few squiggly lines of glitched out text, and that's what people were buying. Unfortunately, I get a lot of one-star reviews from this. I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware of it because, I was told, hey, it's an automatic converter. Oh, well then it's automatic. I don't have to check every fucking page thereafter because it should work fine. No. It's not the way it works. I had to go through, it took me 2 days, I think, at the time, just to go through and manually convert them all, and then I had to individually check them to make sure the stuff was all there and cogent and properly formatted. The problem being that PDF files don't, give you the best format anyway, so use EPUB. And I already did it for the Enchiridion, and it's much better. The images are more in line properly. The font is a little different. It's a little more legible. And you don't have all this other weird formatting issue, essentially, that you get with just the PDF. Encouragement to people. There are online converters that are totally free in browser. It'll take you 10 seconds to convert your PDF to EPUB. Do that and make sure that you manually check each file as you're upping it if you're using Kindle, if you're releasing them through Amazon as ebooks. Make sure you do that. The other thing is that my pricing scheme is a little bit different. Actually, the newer editions, I hold the price down even more than initially. So I am actually going to be lowering the price on some of the earlier works, which will be in a new, better format as well, helping me compete even more. Basically, I've found my niche. Basically, people who don't want to spend exorbitant sums for proper hand-done editions, and who also don't want shitty PDF scans, which are taken often, you know, in a semi-pirated, technically legal but dubious manner from like archive.org and stuff. I can take that, I can go through it line by line. I have the time and the patience to actually edit it by hand to make sure that all of the problems with the initial version are not retained. In some cases, I'm the only one offering editions. I think like the Shakespeare's Oracle and a few of these others. I think, what was it, the Seaside Sybil, a few of the, especially the fortune-telling works. So it's a massive expansion of you know, my occult capabilities, essentially, because I want all of these to be attractive. The initial goal when I started was I was on Amazon looking through some of these works, and I'm like, hey, this is the same thing as what's on archive.org. Or this is so poorly formatted, it's, you know, it's not worth reading. It's like, oh yeah, we have 2-inch margins on every page and it's in 9x12 or something. And they look hideous. Now, they had all sorts of errors all over the place. And a lot of the times, they were twice as expensive as they needed to be because there's no real competitor for them. At the time, nobody, I guess, had bothered to release editions of a lot of these lesser tier works. It's like, you know, the Seaside Sybil, I might only sell 10 copies of it this year, but at least there's an edition available. I'm willing to do that, others weren't. So my initial goal was simply to release things that were worth buying, you know, for a price that was reasonable for people who aren't fantastically wealthy. Of course, now I can go through and I could buy, you know, the hardcover edition if I wanted to. At the time, though, I'm like, you know, I'm totally broke. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. I'll make my own edition. You know, it'll be better. It'll be in a better format. It'll be hand-edited. It won't just be a scan. And it'll be cheaper. Everybody wins. And then I get income from that. So that's essentially what I set out to do, and it's worked 10 times better than I ever expected. So I'm going to keep it up. So this is also an update. After this is all done, the next, you know, 50 editions will be obviously made. It's just I wanted to catch up with all of the secondary work. The organization, it has to be done. I've dragged my heels. I semi-organized my files a while back. Then I did like 30 more editions. So fucking, you know, it's going to take an afternoon just to go through everything. I have to find all the files because, I mean, I've got files scattered around in my folders all over the computer, in the pictures and documents, in the download section, everything. It's gonna be a nightmare. Once it's done, it'll be much better. I'm going to use a new system for saving files as well, so that it's all in one easily found place. Also, I'm creating a double backup because, you know, it is part of a significant portion of my livelihood. So I won't actually be releasing after the Ars Polina is released probably in the next 72 hours, I would imagine. I won't be releasing any new books, and I'm going to make an update on both blogs as well about this until probably June. Now, because I got so much work that I have put off, I need to do that first. It's got to be done for my own sanity. It's going to be massive OCD just looking in the files at the mess that I've created. That's about all. Peace out.